10:05, and Dr. Gibson calling at 10:10. Like,
The way it's been for the past 7 days. Crazy. My phone doesn't stop dinging, and I figure out which way it is.
We're going to do here.
Oh, okay, that's right.
so we got that one mic, so we're just kind of.
It's just like this bottom angle is not cute.
Wait, I had to try mine, right?
Can we just hang it somewhere?
If you can, you kind of said you got this problem.
Yeah, I mean, quarantine.
When you get above 40.
Quarantine 15. We need headsets?
But you're not.
Oh, you don't need a headset
Okay.
unless somebody calls.
Unless somebody calls in or whatever, but you'll be fine.
I had coffee and I didn't have breakfast. This is not good. Let me see right here. Okay, they can. Okay.
They'll know we're here.
Yeah.
Lord.
It's going to be hot.
Lord.
So Travis and I used to work together.
Yeah,
10
so
years
we
ago.
got history, so yeah.
Where?
AT&T.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
was only there for like 3 months.
I spent 15 years. Then I got an education. I've been on the last 7, 8 years. I teach and coach. Yeah.
Isn't it crazy? Like we didn't know either one of us was going to go
Right.
policy, politics, anything.
That's the way life
It's
takes
right
you
over
to
the
turn.
Uh-huh.
I've been around for years.
Politics. People politicking.
Somebody calling right now. I don't think this is the person.
I know Dr. Bell going, but we got David. David's going to call it at 10:05. Just let me know we'll break it in.
I guess somebody might get on this from that social distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. I mean, we're about to be out there with 1,000 people. We're going to have a ton of masks.
Good morning. Good morning, Central Texas, and welcome to If We Only Knew What We Could Do, your morning radio show here on 94.5 The Beat from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. We have a great show lined up for us today, and we have our Police Chief Ryan Holt is with us today, and we have our Hope. Hope, correct me with your mistake. I always get your last. I have a hard time pronouncing your last name.
Mustakim.
Mustank, yeah. So we get that right. And so she's going to be here today, and we got a good show lined up. Some announcements. We have Carver Middle School they will have a new principal who will succeed Principal Perry, which passed away due to COVID-19. He was a great friend of mine and also a classmate, Waco High School class of 1989. The Carver Middle School, they will have a new principal, which will start on July the 1st, and his name is Isaac Carrier, and he has over 25 years experience in education and administration. So we're looking forward to him coming in, and we welcome him to the community, and we'll be getting him on the show to introduce himself to us so we can become, once again, partnership, because this show is all about getting important information out to the community. And my name is Travis Gibson. I'll be filling in as your host today. I'm filling in for my father, retired Commissioner Lester Gibson, and his wife, Kofi Gibson. And I enjoy doing it. I enjoy doing it because I enjoy meeting people, and I love getting information out, especially during the time that we're experiencing right now. Also, there will be a citywide memorial service for the late George Floyd. It will be at Greater Zion Church, which is located at 2625 South 18th Street. The pastor of that church is led by Reverend C.J. Oliver. It's going to be Sunday, June the 7th at 7 p.m. And then following that, there's going to be a candlelight visual, which will take place at 8:30 p.m. Mask is required, and you're encouraged to bring your lawn chairs out and also bring a candle. And if you have any more questions about the memorial, you can reach out. You can contact this number, area code 254-733-8876. That's going to be tomorrow, June the 7th at 7:30 p.m. Also, on Tuesday, June the 9th, we're going to have Stop the Music from 2 p.m. until 6 p.m. on Tuesday. And we have a invited guest that will be in the studio, and we're going to be promoting the awareness of the things that are going on right now, protests, social injustices, police brutality, and what we can do as a community to come together in solidarity to prevent something like that from happening here in our city and our county. So I look forward to that. So you can, and we'll send reminders out. We'll also be broadcast via Facebook Live, and you can also catch it at syntextobe.com. Once again, that's going to be Tuesday, June the 9th. Stop the music and promote awareness. It's going to be from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. And I think sometimes we can, stop the music. We can truly listen and have intentional dialogue with one another to see what we can do as a community and do our part to prevent social injustice from happening, which has been going on for years. Prior to my time, I'm 48 years old and I've experienced this, all my life. My father went through it, and I have young children that are coming up through it also. So we want to bring awareness to that. So stay tuned. It'll be Tuesday, June the 9th, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Today, first of all, I want to welcome Chief Holt. I want to welcome you to the station this morning. I really appreciate you taking your time out. I know you're a busy man, and we'll get into that because you oversee a lot of things right now. And so I want to welcome you to the show, and I appreciate you taking time out just to come in.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I've been on your mom and dad's show before, and so I want to tell you, I appreciate you carrying on the legacy that they started. Yes. And it's important that the voices be heard, and I always enjoyed having time to talk to you, mom and dad. It was always a good time, always insightful, and he didn't mince words. He asked some hard questions sometimes, but that's what we got to do. And
that's what we have to do. We have to answer those tough questions.
Yeah.
Sometimes people want to try to avoid, but when you avoid it, you can't get anything. You can't accomplish anything. And so
absolutely,
I appreciate that, and I'm going to continue to carry that on. And he's listening this morning. That mom, since the COVID-19, have been kind of still practicing shelter in place, and they live by that.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you, Hope, for coming in this morning. Hope was thinking. And you got to excuse me for that. I've been trying to, something. It's like I'm 48 years old, and I still don't know how to tie right. So I have to get my wife to do that. And so I want to thank you. But I want to thank you for coming on. We've known each other before, and I really appreciate the things that you're doing and the things that you're organizing. I mean, it means a lot. It means a lot. And so we'll get to you and everything. And but right now, we got to kind of go with the show, but we'll start with our chief. First of all, like I said, good morning, but explain to me, you serve in dual capacities right now. Kind of explain what you got going on.
Yeah, well, a couple of months ago, I had the honor of being promoted to Assistant City Manager. And so right now I'm overseeing police, fire, animal control or animal services, the zoo, information technology, and some other departments. And so I'm doing that along with being the police chief. And so, we have a lot of good folks working in the city of Waco, and I've got an honor of being part of that group at City Hall now, but I'm also still serving as the police chief. We're doing a national search. We've had 90 applicants to be the next chief in Waco, and so we're going through that process. And so hopefully we'll get a good chief in here to carry on the legacy of the last 3 or 4 chiefs we've had that really are being about part of the community and going from there. But right now, I'm doing 2 jobs.
That's good. So let's kind of walk us through. I know it's a stringent process because you want to get the best candidate for that's an important hire.
Right.
And so what goes into the actual hiring process of the post?
Yeah. So when we started off, we really wanted to attract the right type of folks to be the police chief in Waco, because Waco is a unique place. And so we really wrote the job description that the next chief is going to have to operate from a lens of equity and serve all of our communities. And so we wrote that job description, and we got a national search firm that is they're in the business of hiring leaders in all communities. And so they've put it out nationwide, and today we've got 90 applicants that they are sorting through, trying to get the cream of the crop, so to speak, to bring to us so that we can interview those folks and see who would be a good fit for Waco. A lot of good chiefs out there in the world, a lot of good folks that would be chiefs, but maybe not necessarily for Waco. And so we're going through that lengthy process to find the right person for Waco, Texas.
Has to be a good fit. Now, is the city council, are they involved in that process?
Absolutely. We've got a really involved city council, and they have set priorities for us. And equity is one of those main priorities that they've set for us. So they're keeping a close eye on the process, I can assure you.
Well, that's good. That's good. Now, how long have you been with the police department?
I've been with the police department just under 25 years. So we've been doing it a while. You and I it turns out, are the same age.
Yeah, 48, man. I'll be 49 if the good Lord blesses me at the end of this month. So
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I've been there just under 25 years. Worked with a lot of good men and women over there, and that want to serve our community.
So, how did you start? Just kind of walk us through your progression to become in the position that you're in.
Yeah, started like everybody else starts. As a patrol officer, you come here and go through the police academy and get out there and you work the streets for a while. I had the opportunity to work in South Waco for a long time, and then I ended up as a detective, then as a supervisor, and go through being a supervisor for a while. And back in 2007, I was promoted to assistant chief. And I was an assistant chief for 8 years under Brent Stroman. A lot of folks who've been around Waco a while know Brent Stroman. I got to serve under Al Mellis before that, Gil Miller before him. And then about 4 years ago, Brent Stroman decided to retire after a lot of years, 39 years with the city of Waco. And prayed about it and spoke to my wife about it and felt a calling to serve in that capacity, and had the honor of being picked to be the chief back then, and have served since. Tremendously, getting to know folks in the community even more, going to a lot of community events and a lot of community meetings, sometimes having difficult conversations about the relationship between police and our and all of our communities that we serve. And so really enjoyed that, and now moving on to the next step in the progression, and hopefully I can serve well in the position of assistant city manager and continue supporting that mission set out by the city council, and hopefully do a good job there.
So you're going to actually be the assistant.
So there's three assistant city managers. There's Deidre Emerson, Paul Kane, and myself, and we oversee different departments in the city, a lot of different departments. Bradley Ford is currently our deputy city manager, and Wiley Stem is the city manager. So some of y'all may know about a week and a half ago, when Wiley announced his retirement after 44 years with the city. That's a tremendous amount of time of your adult life spent in public service. He's going to retire, and the council interviewed Bradley for the position, and they named him that he'll be the next city manager for the city of Waco. So he'll step up into that role on July 14th, and then the three of us as assistant city managers will continue to serve Bradley as he looks to lead the city.
Yeah, and Bradley will be on the show Tuesday night. Stop the Music, promote awareness. He'll be in the studio 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. He actually reached out to us, which I appreciate that, because it takes everybody to come together to, can't be quiet on it, you have to speak up on it.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question, Chief. Now,
Sure.
Did you always, when you were a college student, did you know you want to go into law enforcement? Or is something
I didn't. I grew up in, my wife and I actually dated off and on in junior high and high school in Bryan, and thought I wanted to go into business. Didn't really know law enforcement was something I wanted to do, but when I was a senior in high school, the Bryan Police Department had what's called a Citizens Police Academy, and that's something we have now also. And so I went through that as a senior, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't think much of it at the time. So went to college, and like a lot of young people, didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, and sort of floated around a little bit, and really tried to do some soul searching. When I did that, I thought about doing police work, and ended up going over to Stephen F. Austin in Nacogdoches, finishing my criminal justice degree, my undergraduate degree, and loved it. It's opportunity. It's not a desk job. You get out there, and you're always meeting new people and getting to work in the community. And I figured out that public service is where I wanted, my life to be. And here we are, 25 years later.
And I always tell my kids, my students that I teach, you always have to have two things. You have to have a purpose and a passion. And the difficult question is, what is your purpose?
Yep.
You know, a lot of us, even myself, I still don't truly understand my purpose. But if you have purpose and passion, your drive is going to be there. You're going to make great things happen. So you got to have a purpose and a passion. And so I just wanted to kind of get the history and everything now.
Yeah.
Last night I had to look on Facebook. I saw your post.
Yes, sir.
That you made. It was really well stated post.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Well, it's from the heart.
Yeah, because with the whole George Floyd incident and the protests that are going on, you know, I still haven't brought myself to watch that video.
Right.
Because I've seen it repeated over and over.
Right.
And it's just hard for me to watch. Me and my daughter, we watched the memorial service. Yesterday, my days are kind of running together. We sat down and watched the memorial service. And it was touched because I have young men and young women that I'm raising, like my own.
Yeah.
I also have students that I serve as a teacher and a coach and a mentor. And so I'm always concerned about our youth that are coming through. That incident that happened, what was a correct way? What would have been a correct way to handle the situation if we were in that?
Yeah, I think you know, if you just boil it down to the basic interactions that human beings ought to have, and what we talk about, and our officers will tell you that you treat the person in custody the way you want to be treated if that were to happen to you. And we talk about all the time that the people that end up coming in contact with police because they've committed some kind of offense, potentially, you know, a lot of folks just make mistakes, and they do that. And so in that particular case, you know, there was no resistance that would have led to the need for force. Even if there was, there are proper techniques that can be used that don't place a person in a position that positional asphyxia can occur. And we train on that all the time. We got rid of a lot of antiquated things that police were doing more than 20 years ago. So we don't use chokeholds. We don't shoot at moving cars. We don't place people in the old days they called it hog tying, where they pull your feet up and tie it to your hands if you were fighting. And we don't do those things. And our officers really go out of their way to treat people with respect. And even if somebody is just going out of their way to fight you, there are ways that you can do that. Now, it never looks good on camera, you know, when somebody's resisting and fighting, and it never looks good on camera, but there are ways you can do that to minimize what the person's going through, and frankly, to keep officers from getting hurt also. You know, we use less lethal devices. I know there's a lot of conversation around those as well, but it's if you have policies and practice that you use those things properly, then and it's about treating people with respect. You know, I've taken a lot of people to jail in my time that thanked me for taking them to jail. You know, said appreciate the way you treated me, and that's the way it ought to be. You know, because it could be any one of us in any of these situations, and if people just treat each other with common dignity and understand that we all have different perspectives in those human interactions, that's what it's about. And I tell you what, we've got a lot of really good men and women that serve both as sworn police officers, but also as civilians in the Waco Police Department. And they go out of their way because we live in this community. You know, we raise families in this community. And so it only goes to say we would want it to be the best it could be. And we want all of our communities that we serve, because we really do serve a lot of different communities that all happen to live in Waco. But you've got to treat them all with respect, just basic common human dignity.
And that's one thing I've always stressed in my own personal life. I always treat people the way I want to be treated. I was taught that as a young man coming from the church. And it makes sense if everybody could think that way, just treat people the way you want to be treated. Because I know nobody wants to be treated, less than humane, not valued. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, everybody don't think that way. So we have these things that come about. Yeah. But it's people like yourself, the protests, and the people that are speaking up on it, because so long people are just quiet. And I always say this is nothing. I've experienced this over and over. And this police brutality and social injustice has been going on, before my 48 years, during my dad's time. It goes back to the Jim Crow era. It goes back to slavery. But we've come a long way. But we got a lot more work to be done.
Yeah,
a lot more work to be done. So now your sort of restraint practice, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is from what I'm assuming, each individual police department have their own.
right. Yeah, there's not. So there are best practices that are put out by the International Association of Chiefs of Police and the Texas Police Chiefs Association, and our training unit tries to stay ahead and out on the forefront of those best practices. So 30 years ago, when what some people call chokeholds, carotid holds, they thought at the time those were the best practices. But since then, medical experts have told us that's not a good practice. In the old days, you used to say if somebody can talk, then they can breathe, but that's not true. You can still talk even if you can't breathe. And so just this week, our training unit put out another video to remind our officers of the best way that even if somebody's fighting you, to restrain them in a way that allows them to breathe, gets them upright, so that blood can flow properly. You get them medical treatment. If they even say they're hurt in any way, even if you don't think they're hurt, you get them medical treatment. You'd rather be safe than sorry. Again, it goes back to how would you want to be treated in that instance, and that's the way we're training for our officers to do that.
Which is a good thing. Like I've heard different talks about a universal policy for strangles and things like that, right. and it's a good topic of conversation.
Sure. Yeah.
And so our police, what kind of walk through the training that they go through? Say I'm a brand new in the academy.
Yeah.
Walk me through that process.
Yeah. So there's 6 months of the academy, and that covers everything from all the written law, but after you get through all the law stuff and all the different codes that rule us as police officers and rule our society, then you go into those physical operational things that you do, like traffic stops and handcuffing, and how to defend yourself if somebody's attacking you, and you do driving and shooting and all those things that everybody thinks about when they think about police officers. But also involved in that is we do scenario-based training. It's essentially role play, and you role play through each one of these types of scenarios, all the way up to if you have to use force, and when not to use force, and how to recognize, because different people react different in different situations, and not everybody reacts the way you think they ought to react. And the fact of the matter is that different people react differently to the badge and to the uniform, because we all come from different places. We all come from different perspectives, and so that's part of the academy training. So once you graduate from the academy, we use a regional academy here in Waco. So all of our officers go to the MCC Academy out at the Emergency Services Center out near the airport with officers from other agencies. Then once they get out of the police academy, we get them to Waco PD for about another 3 months of just Waco training. And that's when they really are doing a lot of the intensive role playing, whether it's traffic stops or answering calls for service, domestic disturbances. We've got like apartments set up and houses set up so that the officers do the whole thing, getting out of their car to getting the radio call, getting the information on their computer, to talking to folks. And honestly, one of the hardest things we're having to teach young people today is how to talk to people. Because, you think about kids today and they're on their devices, they text most of the time. They hardly ever use it as a phone. They're texting. And so one of the things we're having to talk to people about is how to talk to people. And with that, as so much goes into your tone and your inflection, and somebody may think you're disrespecting them based on your tone or your inflection, when maybe that's not what you mean. So we really go into how to talk to people, how to de-escalate situations using words instead of physical control, and so they do that before they ever get to the street. So then once they get out on the street, they work all 3 shifts with what's called a field training officer. So it's usually a senior officer who's been on the streets for a long time, and they start out that first month, and during that first month, they just watch the other officer. They're there in the car with the officer. They go on every call, but they're just watching how that senior officer models that behavior that they've learned in the academy, and then in the post training of the academy. After that first month, they go into the second to a new field training officer, and they start doing some things, some of the easy things like traffic stops, answering some of the basic calls. And they if they do good there, then they go to the third month where they're doing most of it themselves, and the officer is watching them. And every day during that time period, there's a whole myriad of things that they're being graded on, and they have to pass the ability to do each one of those things that are in this list of daily observation reports from their senior officers. And honestly, some people don't get through that. We lose people in the academy. We lose people in field training that just for whatever reason either decide they can't do those things or that they can't do them right. And so we have to let them go in that field training. But that's what it's for. It's to not everybody's meant to be a police officer. Right. And frankly, it can be a difficult job to do the things that you have to do, and sometimes to be spit on and kicked on and all those things. So you've got to make sure that you want the right person that's mentally right, and the person that's got their heart in the right place. And so after they get through all that field training, then they put them in a car on their own. But we still have an officer watching. We call it a ghost officer. And they're around them and making sure they're doing it. So that field training is about an additional 4 months. And then once they do that, then they get put on a platoon. And then they get to serve as a patrol officer. Generally, most of our patrol officers at a minimum do 2 years on the streets before they go do something else, like a detective or something else.
Okay, that's why I want to kind of walk out with this and through that.
Yeah.
Now, there's still a test. I know before, like some outside looking in,
Yep.
so before you skip a test,
Yep.
then you have the interview process.
Yeah, so our hiring process takes about 6 months to go through the hiring process, because there's a written test right up front. It's a civil service test because we're a civil service department. So state law dictates how we do hiring and firing and discipline and everything else. So you take a civil service test and you take a physical agility test on the first day. If you pass both of those things, then you go through a polygraph test, a lie detector test. You have a psychological examination. You have a medical examination. You go through all those things, and then you sit in front of a review board. And the review board is usually made up of the assistant chiefs and some senior officers in the department. And we're looking for a person who has some life experience. We don't hire too many kids right at 21 years old because we want people to have a little wisdom about them. And not only wisdom, but we want to have a little discernment on how to use that wisdom. And that comes from life experience. You and I, and Hope, and everybody else, we have some failures in our lives, and it's how you make it through those failures that give you wisdom and discernment, in addition to the successes. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for people that have, not only that have a clean history, because there are plenty of people out there that have a clean history, but they may not have the wisdom we need on the streets. And so that's what that interview is about. And sometimes it's a long interview. We have people that come out of there and say, that was the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life. And we have people that don't make it through those interviews. And so it's a pretty lengthy process just to get hired. And then once you get hired, then you start the academy. We do that about every 6 months.
Okay. So now let's say if a person went through the process, they went through the academy, they got a clean record. Once they get in the organization, let's just say they have some complaints, or you find out they're just not a good fit or unethical.
Sure. Yeah.
You have those that interview well, that go through the process well, and once they get in, I always like to find the best in everybody, right?
Yep.
Some people have different intentions, right? Different perspectives. So how do you handle those officers that go through the process, get in, and then we start with complaints or just unethical things? How do we handle that?
So during the first year, the officers on probation, they don't have what we call civil service protection. So during that first year, they're an at-will employee. And sometimes we just have to call folks in and say, hey, are you sure this is for you? Are you sure this is the right path for you to make a career and to make a life out of? And when we have those conversations, most of the time people say, yeah, I've been thinking about it, probably not for me, and they go do something else. Once they get past the year mark, then state law says that they have what's called civil service protection. Now, what that means, all that means is that we have to go through a formalized process for discipline. So let's say somebody makes a complaint on an officer for rudeness or use of force or whatever it might be. There's a formal investigation that has to happen, and that can take a week or two sometimes to do a formal investigation. It's usually done by their supervisor, their immediate supervisor, but sometimes for some. So if it's a use of force complaint, it's done by the internal affairs sergeant, and the internal affairs sergeant only reports to the chief of police. So nobody can have any undue influence on that internal affairs sergeant. Once an investigation is done, if it's unfounded or if it's found not to be true, then that's the end of it. But if it's found to be true, if it's sustained, what we call sustained, then it goes through the chain of command for a disciplinary recommendation. And discipline can range anywhere from an oral reprimand, a written reprimand, it can be days off, and it can be what we call indefinite suspension. Indefinite suspension is the same as a firing. Now, for an oral reprimand and a written reprimand, it goes in their file, and hopefully that's the end of it. Hopefully they never have that problem again in their career. If it's days off, same thing. Now, if the police chief, and the police chief is the only person under civil service who can give discipline. So if the police chief gives discipline, whether it's days off or an indefinite suspension, then the officer can appeal that decision to an independent arbitrator. And an independent arbitrator is a civilian who comes in and hears the officer side and hears the department side of the investigation. And then they rule, and it's binding arbitration. So if the civilian says, yes, the chief was right, the chain of command was right, this officer did wrong, then the discipline stands. If the arbitrator says, no, the chief overstepped his authority in this, and it wasn't as bad as the chief made it out to be, they may reduce the discipline, or they can wipe the discipline away, this civilian arbitrator. And so, and that's the formalized discipline process under 1.3. So, we, at the Waco Police Department, we have a long history of holding our officers to a high level of integrity and ethics. And unfortunately, like you said, sometimes people don't need to be the police, and we have fired our own officers, and unfortunately, we've also arrested our own officers. And it's unfortunate, but that's what we have to do to keep the trust of our community. When I started here, Gil Miller was the chief, and he set that as the level. To carry that on as well, that we have high expectations for our officers. This job can be very, very rewarding. You get to have that interaction with the community, but we've got to keep that community trust.
We're going to pause right there. I'm going to take a call. We have a call. Go ahead, call 94.5 B. Hello, 94.5 B. Yes, I can hear you now. How you doing this morning? Yes, ma'am. Who am I speaking with? Hey, Ms. Nora, how you doing? Good to hear your voice, and I appreciate you calling in. What's the question? Yeah. Chief said, go ahead and answer the question, Chief.
Yeah. Right. So I think, I don't know if you saw the Dallas Morning News the day before yesterday, but I thought it was interesting that one of their headlines was that the chief in Dallas was instituting what she was calling a duty to intervene for her officers, and I thought it was sort of ironic because I did that in the first year that I was chief. We reviewed our policies and we said, look, if you're an officer on the scene and you see something where somebody's being hurt or placed in harm, not only do you should you not participate, but you have a duty and an obligation under our policy to, first of all, to intervene and keep bad things from happening. And then once you intervene, you also have an obligation under our policy to report it to the police department, up the chain of command for us to investigate. And so, I can't stand here today and promise you that, I've heard that too, the blue wall of silence. But I got to be honest when I tell you that in all of my years of working with good men and women, if they see something bad happening, they put a stop to it. And they want to intervene because that badge means something to them. And that trust behind the badge and that trust in the patch that says Waco Police means something to them. And they intervene. And right now, and since I've been chief, they've had the obligation to intervene on top of all that. Sure, there's always going to be that peer influence, regardless, like you said, whether you're a nurse or a doctor or a police officer, and we do have to realize that police officers are human beings. They're fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters, and so there's always going to be that. But I think what we're seeing in police work and a lot of other things is that people recognize that we have a moral obligation to intervene, and I think what you've seen in the past is changing, and I think. People speaking up and demanding change, I think that goes to it. And so I've worked around these officers in Waco for a long time, and they care about our community. They care about, because their kids go to school with other kids and shop alongside people, and they're our friends and in our families. And so I hear you, and you're right. People are human, and there are going to be influences. But our policy and our practice is that's not going to happen here. And if it does, I think I've been clear in the past and other chiefs before me that if it does happen, we're not going to put up with it. Well, we appreciate you.
Mr. Rock, I appreciate you calling in. And once again, on Tuesday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., we're going to have, we have asked these questions. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, Mr. Norris, I appreciate you calling in, and I look forward to hearing from you on Tuesday. We have this attorney available. We have Sheriff McNamara. Hopefully, the time that Chief Holt will be back in. We got to live. Yes, ma'am. Thanks for calling. We'll take another call. Go ahead and call me on 94.5 and be. Hey, how you doing, Brother Griff?
Sure. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the question. So, because we're a civil service department, anytime you want to promote, you take a test. It's a written test, and then there is what's called an assessment center, where we get assessors from other agencies who come in, and there can be things like, for a supervisor, there can be what's called an inbox exercise, and there are those, just like we talked about in that real basic training, we do scenarios. The supervisors or people that are trying to be supervisors can also go through scenarios, and oftentimes it's how to do those investigations. You know, how to properly do them, how to talk to the public about things, how to deal with things that supervisors in every job have to deal with. And so there's really a level playing field, regardless of who you are as a police officer. You get the same opportunities to put in for the test. Once you have 5 years in, you can put in for that first line supervisor's test. You take the test, you perform on the assessment center, and then you can be a first line supervisor or a sergeant. And just this year, we've promoted 10 different sergeants. We've had 10 retirees, and we've promoted 10 police sergeants. And so then after sergeant, you know, you do your time in the sergeant's level, and then you can test for commander. And commander are those folks that run the entire platoon or the entire group of officers that are working on like a 3-to-1 shift is our group. And so within the civil service system, the type of department we are, it's a level playing field for anybody who wants to promote. And we're honored. We do have minorities in supervisory positions. We have women in supervisory positions. We've tried really, really hard to reach out to people on the recruiting side and encourage people who have never thought of being a police officer, or that law enforcement could be a way to raise their family, an honorable job to have. And we've done a pretty good job of increasing both. We're higher with female officers than the national average. We're about 14%. The national average is about 12%. We're not quite above the national average for minority officers, but we're not going to let that stop us in trying. And one time I was asked in a community meeting about why I wasn't hiring more minority officers faster. And I explained that, you know, police officers stay in their job for 30 or 35 years as a typical career. Some stay 40 years. And so we only get to replace officers once every couple of generations. And so we spend a lot of time and a lot of money recruiting at historically minority universities, the military, all of those things, so that we can get people to think about law enforcement that may not have ever thought about being in law enforcement. Because the reality is, we need good people from all walks of life, from all perspectives, to come in and be part of the solution. And so we really spend a lot of time and effort on that. But it takes a while to get that changed, because officers, like I said, officers stay 30 years. You know, that's a generation and a half for a lot of folks before we get. But like I said, we promoted 10 sergeants. Right now, we hire people about every 6 months to fill slots. We've got 12 officers that are going to graduate from the police academy next week on Wednesday and get them out on the streets. So, fantastic question. But we're fortunate that in our department, it's a level playing field for folks who want to promote up and be supervisors.
Look, I appreciate you calling in, man. Great question. Would be, and an hour doesn't do us any better. So we're going to choose June 9th, 2:26 p.m. stop. We need to continue with this question. Thank you for calling in. This whole thing goes on. So you hang around for a minute. First of all, I want to thank you for doing what you're doing. Like I said, we've known each other before all of this, right? A decade is coming back to a circle to change Waco, Black Lives Matter. I'm impressed, right? And it makes me feel good to see Black folks in the Super Bowl. You can't sit back and be solid. That's out too long. And I was really impressed with the organization that you're doing. Tell us about the Change Waco.
Yeah, so Change Waco is a collective. It's like an alliance of Black and brown-led organizations, representatives from each organization, who are being supported by white allies. So we're being led and guided and advised by the colored group, but the white community alongside and support. There is no excuse anymore. You've seen it. There might be more to the story. There's no, I don't know all the details. So now that white America has seen that some of the people say they've been brutalized, it's true. So it's time for you to stand up and just support any way that you can. And yeah, we're being really clear about what being an ally really means. And we're asking people to, put their feet to the ground, come out, show up, show out. Sometimes you need to put your money where your mouth is, especially in supporting Black businesses and, funding organizations that are doing this work and trying to work hard for racial equity. It's something we're not going to see it all happen in our generation, but we're going to see progress. Because I don't think there's ever been a time in history like this. We never had social media before. We never had such quick access to people's stories. We've never been able to distribute them as fast. And so it's literally a time in history that we're going to look back on and recognize that we're part of something monumental.
That's how we're really impressed with our younger generation. Black Lives Matter movement, all those protests.
Yeah, that was led by some young.
That brings joy to my heart, right? Because our younger ones, we have a lot of time. We do have those young people that comes to where they're working to boost the brand. And they're back and they're talking back, and a lot of people talking with something. It's time to take action and look around and stand by yourself. So I came back to the protest on Sunday. I felt it was very not very. I felt like I love to stand there.
That's the point. People show up, and because you don't need to be feeling your own in this. That wears you down whenever you're facing something day after day. Even microaggressions, little things people say here and there. If the more alone you feel, the more intense it impacts you psychologically. I forgot to mention Change Waco. It's like we recognize that at this moment in time, with the killings of Brown Taylor and George Floyd, we're like, we have to take all this energy, all this reaction, all this response, and channel it towards systemic change. Because if we get angry and we express all that, if we don't change who holds positions of power, we'll be here in another 50 years, just as angry, just as mad, which is justified and it's righteous. But if we don't door knocking, canvassing, voter registration, if you don't change who holds these positions of power, we're going to end up here.
It's 100% accurate. You have the power to be voting. Power you put those in position
By not voting.
So we have to mobilize our vote. We have to mobilize our spend our money.
We have to be very specific about who we're telling people to vote for. Because we just want people to vote. If we don't make it easy for them to access information about what policies certain politicians are supporting, they don't know who to vote for, so they're not going to vote. So we need to make that, especially to our young people. I had a group of 21, 25-year-olds all in the house organizing for this, and nearly all of them didn't know what a congressional representative was, what your state rep does, and how they are managing policies and what policies are impacting your livelihood. And so that's what Change Waco is about. It's putting the power back in hands of people through education, mobilization, voting, so that I know a lot of young people want to be seen and heard and be felt, and I think they want people to finally understand the fear that they live in. So the best way for you to scare people in power is to start being strategic, mobilizing. It's like when you start voting, becoming active and engaged in the democratic process, when you show up to commissioners' court, when you show up to city council, when you bring a topic to the forefront, like that is intimidating. That makes people recognize change is coming. And so that's why we've been steering people away from any type of destruction of property or whatever, not because we think they're wrong, not because we don't think it's justified. We understand how white supremacy is embedded in our economic system. And so we understand where that comes from, wanting to destroy the people that have neglected you and abused you and exploited you for so long. But like I said, we don't want to end up here in 50 years. So it's like, let's channel all that into productive change, run for office. And I want to see all these brilliant young minds running for office. And so that's what today is about, 4 p.m.
Explain about the rally today. Explain, talk about the rally.
Yeah, so there's been some incredible young organizers, their first time, and they're so smart and passionate, and they organize, and I've just kind of been advising and helping connect them with the right people. And the rally today, we're calling it Rally for Change, and so there's everything I described about voter information, tons of voter registrars are going to be there. We're gonna have what we call cheat sheets to tell you who's running for what offices in the upcoming elections, what those offices, what it means, what does the title mean. And then we're gonna have QR codes for them to, you can donate to Black Lives Matter, you can donate to Change Waco, all like we're just making everything really accessible and really easy to get information. And there's gonna be people out there, just like, because we recognize kids are gonna be there, so we like have activities for kids, face painting, stuff like that, while to keep them occupied while we listen to rep poets, singers, guest speakers, and open mic, a space for open mic for people to sign up. So if you want to do open mic, you gotta show up early, get your name on the list. And then at 6:30 we have organized a march, and we have our map already mapped out. We're going to discuss it with the week, and I know there's a lot of rumors going around that it's violent, such and such, and you know that's how people like to spread the negative news and like the positive news. So we're challenging folks to go out there and correct any misinformation they see. And I know the Waco PD is prepared if they need to come in, but you will not see them unless need be. They will not be there because Chief Holt recognizes that Chief Gins recognizes that creates like tension and fear and whatever. So we've already discussed this. Like people are there's all this chatter going on, but they don't realize that we're already in communication. You know, I think there's a lot of people in the city who want to change the city for good. And we're not going to always do it right or perfect, but this city is like one that's not like no other. You know, there's just like a different dynamic here. And so, yeah, we don't believe the hype that there's going to be, you're going to show up and there's going to be a SWAT National Guard, like just waiting for you. That's not true. This is going to be a peaceful event, but we do have our public servants there. If anyone from outside tries to come in and derail, we've got it so planned out, it's going to be really easy to spot them. So, planning. We've been organizing for 7 days, just, yeah.
Proper preparation, just for performance, you know, we have our kids, and so that's a beautiful thing. So give us some details. I'll be in attendance and answer questions.
Yeah.
We had a lot of time to spend with each other, right? So give us some details and specifics on the
Yeah, so it starts at 4 in the Incident Park, which is right on the side of the bridge. There's an amphitheater area where that concrete slab is. We have a trailer out there. That's going to be our stage. Thanks to Pinewood Coffee. We donate that, and then we're going to have speakers. I mean, you'll be able to hear us. We're going to have everything set up right. We'll just start out, you know, our 2 MCs and just introducing people to, like I said, it's very, because we saw last week how we didn't expect that many people, so we didn't like it was organized but not over. It wasn't a whole lot of organization. So we're like, if there's going to be 3 times as many people showing up, you know, we want it to be done right. Normally people have 3 months or a year to plan for things like this, but we did it in a week, so still bear with us. And you're going to have like singers, poets, speakers, all that, and a few people who are running for local, not local, but state office and congressional who are going to go up there and just explain to people what their job does. They're not going to be campaigning. They're there to help disseminate information about what does a state rep do, what does a congressional rep do, and how that impacts policing, schools, criminal justice, so to help connect the dots. But after that, we're going to do a march. And yeah, we have t-shirts there for pre-order, and just kind of commemorate this moment in time. And yeah, I think that's, let me know in the comments if I forgot something.
Because I appreciate you guys. Bad and so but no, I'm going to be looking forward to it, and you know the thing that you're doing great. You're going to be able to stop doing it too. You're doing more detail than that. We're doing the organization, I spoke to Elizabeth Thomas. I was extremely impressed. I saw a lot of forward with the doing, but see, I've been involved in positive organizations with my dad being active about it. I've understood the process, what it means to know. When I see our young generation, young adults doing what they're doing, organized, protesting,
so inspiring.
You know, putting action, putting out action, not just rhetoric, but action back there. I'm extremely impressed. I'm giving the platform, Black Lives Matter, and everything. Show them to also giving the platform to bring awareness to what's going on. And like I said, it's big going on. It's going to be twisted. It's going to be going before doing my party, doing my badge. want to get on pack. So like I said before, we made tremendous strides. So we got all the work. We have to hold our elected officials accountable. That's why we have to be involved in the voting process. Now, I know you protest local businesses here, right? We're talking about this. But I saw I've been following and I'm all out on the street. And then you got to do that. You have to follow local police. Because we already dealing with COVID-19. Raising temperature, that's not, I have zero tolerance.
Yeah. I think we're at that time, that place where, I mean, we say not in my city, but we don't want it anywhere.
Right.
But this is the city we live in, so we're going to say not in my city. Because it is such a peculiar thing that at a time like this, someone would post racist, hateful comments. And I know, like, there was like this conversation going on. I mean, you never see the full picture in someone's argument with someone else, but I do know there's never an excuse to start launching into those, because those words have such a long history of not just abuse, but lynching. It's just a dehumanizing term that you're throwing at people. And then this person felt so emboldened to say it. So publicly whenever they manage their own store here. So it wasn't just the BLM folks that came out. It was people in general. It was like a diverse group. It was like, no, we're not going to stand by while you abuse one of our sisters. So, we went out. They're going out again. They've been going out 4 days straight over there at Critters next door to Katie Custer. So
you have to bring these things to light because for so long people don't discuss. We have to discuss. We have to talk about it because people say, my sis, I was born from Eastwood. And that mode is the first time to see people come in and take ownership. That's what we need. I never really thought I was on the Navy way, coming to Navy way when I came back. My family's here, so I have a blessing to do that. One of the city. That's one of our opportunities. Parents have developed show. I don't think that's what we're five for right now. Platform to bring people like this to build active information. So I was check it out the long way. Like concept is called real quick. Go ahead, call me when I say Hello. So, I mean, that's a good thing. So I can't anticipate an excuse to have more time to come in. But an itinerary is going to be, go ahead, we take this call. Go ahead, call you on 94.5. Bad certain perception there. But the program, like I said, is going to stop the music. And, a lot of times music can get distracted. I love music. Sometimes it's peace. We can stop music here. Yeah. We can actually hear what other people are saying. And this whole platform is huge. And so we have Black Lives Matter movement here, Woodson, Michael Thomas, Shane Waco, yourself. Who are some more people that associated with? I mean, Mr. Bell, I think Izzy.
yeah, Izzy's 16-year-old. Just recognized, like, even as recent as a couple months ago, problematic thinking that you don't realize is so deeply embedded in you when you grow up white in the U.S. So she's just been super passionate about learning and growing and supporting in any way possible. And so she recognizes that, JVR and his friends organized last week, so she wanted to help keep moving going by offering to help organize this week and kind of put the lead work behind it. And but we also jumped in anyway because it's a lot of work to do for just one 16-year-old. So then JVR and Vincent and me and all their friends, it's been a collaborative work. And Izzy's going to be there coaching tomorrow. So
y'all can bring them to.
Okay.
We'll have what we're going to break down each hour. When we first brought my attention, I was like, it's a long time to talk. We don't make it happen. And so we got the one out, we have the one out, we can change Waco. So this will be 2 to 3. We have our preachers coming down on local start at 2 o'clock. We'll kick the program off. 3 to 4 we have Waco direction between 4 to 5, we'll have our elected officials, we'll have Commissioner Miller, Judge Lance Hughes, Justice Precinct 2, we got my brother-in-law, and we'll have Councilman John Johnson, who's incredible, Councilwoman Linda Clarfield, from 5 to 6, we'll have our local law enforcement, along with the mayor of Waco, so we'll have our district attorney, Barry Johnson, our Sheriff McNamara, County Sheriff, we'll have Bradley Ford, who's going to be the new city manager for Waco. He's going to be here. We'll have Cleveland, a little bit 5 to 6 lot. Chief Holt, like I said, you get a chance to have this schedule to come in. But what we're doing is having a potential discussion to engage our listening audience, to make awareness of what's going on. Because like I said, it's 1 hour, there's just so much we can talk about. And it's going to be so once again, I want to appreciate Chief Holt for coming here this morning. Hope, I want to thank you. I know you're very busy. You're very busy for the last coming in. We will be at 10 days, so it's 4 p.m. And in the spring.
Hey, I want to welcome everybody who was listening to If You Only Knew What We Could Do, hosted by Travis Gibson. We wanted to come on right after the show so that we could give some information about what's coming up next. And I wouldn't be able to do it without the brains behind the idea. So Graham, quickly, can you tell us what Stop the Music is all about? Because you're the one who brought it to my attention and included me in on this particular project and what it means to 94.5 and the radio station and all together.
Well, about when we first started the radio station in 2010, it was really important for me to be able to do something community-based. I believe that we didn't have a voice, in our community. So one of the things I wanted to do, the entertainment and the music and things of that nature, but I really wanted to focus on for community issues. And we started the show with Commissioner Gibson. I reached out to him for if we only knew what we could do, and made it a platform. So when social injustice and just every day, it's a weekly conversation to have meetings, we could do that. And it's continued on through his son now, and I think it's a great thing. But when all this stuff happened, we needed to have a more in-depth conversation. We needed to have a more in-depth direction. We needed to have some stuff that to make it possible, and we needed more than an hour to do it. And we needed prime time. We needed people opinions and people that was going on. So with the help of my staff, we all got together, and what can we do, man? Hey, we're gonna stop the music. We're gonna realize that what's going on, and we're gonna do something about it. And that's when you guys are the liaison for that, man. Y'all are the community leaders there, and I wanted to reach out to y'all, you and Travis and other community leaders, and be able to put this thing together and make it work. So it's kind of an extension of the idea that we had when we first initiated the station, and just another arm to keep it going.
Yeah, I when you asked me to be a part of it, man, I was honored, and it was it was just a matter of what I knew what you wanted us to talk about. It was a matter of whether we were going to get buy-in from our public officials, community leaders, city and county staff members who are responsible for law enforcement or whatever. And we've gotten significant buy-in, and they're going to be on the show from 2 to 6 p.m. We're going to have everybody from local pastors and preachers that will be talking about what can be done in the Black community to improve our circumstances. There's going to be elected officials coming on talking about their role in instituting change and policy. There's also going to be local activists who have been activated in this season to make a change in our community, some young people who are doing some really transformative things in our community, some things that hadn't been done in years. They're going to be on the show. And also, we're going to have the principal leaders in law enforcement in our community, which is Sheriff Parnell McNamara, Chief Holt, the district attorney, and also the mayor, Kyle Deaver. So we've gotten everybody to be a part of this, and we need participation from our community. We need questions that you want answered. We had a very interesting question that happened at the end of the show today related to minorities being promoted and hired. And we need to expound and find out what is specifically being done in Waco, what policies are being implemented in Waco PD to hire minority officers. That's just one example of the conversation. We can drill down in that 4-hour time span and answer those questions in great detail.
One of the things that we want to be able to do too, we want you guys to be able to interact. We want to be able to see questions from y'all. We want to be able to post, because at the end of the day, we can say all we want to say, but y'all are the voice and the people of the community. So we want to hear interaction from y'all. One of the biggest things that I want to reach out to the leaders, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have the DA on and the sheriff, county sheriff on, and the police on, those are the ones that make the decision. I mean, you get pulled over for something, or you commit a crime, there's a process that it has to go through. First, you're going to interact with the police or the sheriff department. Then it goes to the DA's office, and that's where the decisions are made on everything. And if you look, a lot of these times when we have these killings of these unarmed black men, and the DA always decide, well, we don't see charges or this, and this. So I want these people on the show to be able to say, ask the tough questions. Hey, man, how do we prevent this from happening in our own community? How do we know that the officers are being trained properly? How do we know that, it ain't going to just fly by now? I mean, folk ain't taking it no more. I mean, I don't agree with what's going on with some of the violent protests, but I understand. I mean, I understand. I mean, the folk always, when Colin Kaepernick was taking the knee, everybody had a problem with it. And then now they want to say, well, why don't y'all peacefully protest? Well, we tried. You had a problem with that too.
So, absolutely. I think oftentimes, Graham, is that there is no proper way to stand up and speak up for the rights of black and brown people in this country. Anything that you do would be either dismissed or considered inappropriate. Mm-hmm. So I don't listen to naysayers when it comes to speaking up for our people and my community. We have to do it in a fashion that they will hear and understand us. And like you said, not to reiterate it, the peaceful option was very ineffective, and that was not heard at all.
No, we lost our jobs and we were called sons of bitches.
However, you can say what you want to about the rioters and the civil unrest or whatever, but there is dialogue happening that had not happened before. Right. Is that because of the rioting or the destruction in cities all over America? I don't know, but it is quite a coincidence. I will say that.
Yeah, like I said, I don't agree with the violence part of it, but I definitely, something needs to be done. My daughter, she just graduated from high school last Saturday. Guess what she was doing yesterday? She's out protesting. I mean, she was, and you see the younger generation, and that's where it needs to start. These are the folk, the kids, the younger generation are getting the vote, and we need them to step up as leaders too and let them know, because when you see a young demographic like that, that's going out and say, you know what, we don't like this, and they the next voters, and then you got us, change got to come, and it's got to come, and it starts at the poll, and everybody, well, we tired of voting, we voted. It don't matter. Texas is a Republican state, so my vote really don't count because it's gonna be Republican. You keep thinking that, and you stay at home, and you're gonna see what happens.
That's a defeatist attitude.
Right.
I think it's incumbent that we get in every process in leadership that we need to take part in. Every decision-making process. Voting is the beginning. Activism is the beginning. But we also need to go downtown and make our voices heard through policies and guidelines and implementation and all those different aspects of changing the culture of our cities, because it all starts on the local level.
Right.
We are often distracted by national elections and senatorial elections and things of that nature. But everything is changed right here on the ground. It's not changed. It's not, if you're waiting for Donald Trump to change your life, it's not going to happen. What's going to happen is when your mayors and your city council members and the local nonprofit,
your governor,
your governor, and all those people, and you affect change at that level. That's what's going to affect your life. And we have to get people activated, man. I'm excited about Tuesday, man. I'm looking forward to taking part in it, and I can't wait, man. And like I say, I think it was a transformative idea. It showed quite a vision on your part, and I just want to again thank you for bringing it to our community.
I just thank y'all for being a part of it, man. Because we could come up with all the ideas, but we don't have the people to push the ideas forward, man. And I just thank God for the staff that we have. I may look like the brainchild and all that, but one thing, part of being a great leader is being a great delegator. I got some good people that work, and I listen to them, and I take their advice. If they come up with something, hey, we need to do this, we're gonna do it. And that's what it's. It's a team effort over there. So definitely thank Travis, thank you, thank Commissioner Gibson. To me, he's a living legend, and all the things that he's done. I mean, yeah, I done seen some stuff that he done done that I can't even repeat on his live, but it made a good positive change for us. And he was a sacrificial man. He put his neck out there on the line, no pun intended, but he put his neck out there on the line for a lot of things that happen and people don't even know. I'll just share this with y'all. The very first family fun day that we had, we needed some particular permits to have it, and the city kind of gave me some rhetoric. Oh yeah, you good. And then 4 days before the first family fun day, they came to me and they said, oh, for your permits for this, you need to have this. You need to have this, and this. And I said, wait a minute, y'all ain't said that the whole time. Well, you didn't ask. And I'm like, what do you mean I didn't ask? So they wanted me to get the county judge, the city attorney, the chief of police of Waco, and the sheriff of Waco. They all had to sign off on this particular permit. Now it's 4 days, and they say it's a 2-week process because it has to go to each desk. So here we are on the very first family fun day, and I'm like, wait a minute, we finna have to cancel this thing. I picked up the phone, I called Commissioner Gibson, and he said, young brother, where you at? And I said, I'm in my office. He said, be in my office in 5 minutes. Man, I went to the man's office. He said, where your car at? I said, it's out. And he said, let's go. We walked to every one of these people's offices. He got them to sign that document that day. And we had the very first family fun day.
That's amazing. And that kind of influence in our community is well needed. And like I said, he was a lion of a leader. And and we need to develop people in our community to have that same influence, not only in our community, but to get things done for our community with people outside our community. And so that's really an amazing story, and I know you never forget that.
No, I don't never forget that. That's one of many, y'all. I ain't gonna tell y'all what happened in some of the meetings.
Yeah.
But man, I appreciate y'all, man, and we looking forward to Tuesday. We ask everybody to tune in. It'll be on 94.5. You can stream syntexbeat.com and also be on Facebook Live on this particular form right here as well. So we're looking forward to it. And y'all, we just got to get ready for change. And you got to understand, change is uncomfortable for a lot of people. We're used to the normal. So I just want to tell everybody, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because we got to make some changes.
Yeah, I just want everybody to tune in. Make sure you submit your questions. If you're not able to view it live, I know 2 to 6 can be, work hours for somebody, but you can always come back and view it later and see your question answered, man. Much love, and how do you end the Grand Man show with what's the sign out, man?
Tough times don't last forever. Tough people always do. You believe you can achieve. I'm living proof, and make sure God, the men upstairs, get the glory in all that you do. Whatever decisions you decide to make in your life, never think small, think big. B-I-G, believe in God, because he definitely believes in you. Appreciate you, Rocky, man.
Thank you.